Hello, my name is Allie Levine. I'm a Microsoft Office Specialist Master, and I'm here today to talk to you about digital transformation and Microsoft 365. Most of these features I am going to show you today involve artificial intelligence, or AI, and I believe most of these are only going to be available in Office 365. So if you don't have Office 365 and you would like to access these features, the help desk can help get you updated to the latest version. I'm also running a Windows machine, so it's possible if you're on a Mac that a couple of these features will look a little bit different, but I believe all of these will be available on a Mac. So the first series of features that I'd like to show you are in PowerPoint. So I have here a presentation, and it looks like I used a template of some sort here for the first few slides, Renaissance music. And then I got to the fourth slide and kind of ran out of steam here. So if you are someone who is looking for some inspiration for your slides, or maybe you're like me and you're just not super artistically inclined, you will really like the designer feature in PowerPoint. So a few ways to find this. Your Home tab, all the way on the right side, you will see the designer here. It is also on the Design tab of your ribbon, again, all the way on the right side. You may have also encountered this feature as you're creating a slide. Sometimes as you're typing content in the slide, it'll sort of pop out on the right here and introduce itself to you. So I'm on my slide here. I'm going to force it to pop out by clicking on the designer button here. And you can see a variety of suggestions that it has for me. So I'm just going to look through some of these. Now notice that some of these are actually going to read the contents of the slide and insert a relevant image. So this saw the word music, popped it in here. This one's kind of pretty, also music. Some of these are incorporating smart art here. So if you looked at this, by the way, and you said, well, how did she know that's smart art? How do I tell what this is? As you're using some of these designer features, just click on whatever it throws into your slide and look for what contextual tab appears. That's a great trick in Office. If you don't know what you're looking at, just click on it and look for a contextual tab. And in PowerPoint Essentials session, I have a full session called PowerPoint Essentials, you'll learn how to create smart art and work with some of these stock images too, which are really cool. So this inserted a picture of music. I think I like this one better. Another example here, so modern music as listened to by kids, adults, cats, and dogs. You can see it's picked up on cats and dogs in here and given me a cat and dog picture I can insert. So you kind of get the idea. These can really help to spruce up your presentation. Maybe I should change it to this one so it's a little different design. So that is the designer or design ideas. Originally it was called design ideas. The next AI feature I wanted to show you in PowerPoint is called the Rehearsal Coach, and this is on the Slideshow tab of your ribbon, kind of towards the center here, and it says Rehearse with Coach, kind of on the left side. So if you are wanting to practice your presentation, maybe before a conference, you want to run through your presentation and see how everything goes, you might want to check this out. So let's see what it does. I'm gonna select this. When I click on this button, it's going to throw me into a presentation mode. And in the lower right, keep an eye out for the coach. So I'm going to click Rehearse with Coach. So see how the coach is starting down here. Now, you don't have to have show real-time feedback on. If that makes you nervous, you don't have to have it on, but I'm going to leave it on just to show you what this looks like. So I'm going to start rehearsing. And it's going to be listening to me as I'm talking and correct me as I go. So the types of things that the coach is listening for are things like, how fast are you talking? Are you too fast, too slow? Are you too loud or too quiet? Are you saying too much? Sometimes I can make it pop out by saying a couple times. Just a variety of different things. Your tone, if you're too monotone, it's listening for that. So far, I haven't been able to get it to correct me on anything. So let's see if I move through some slides if it corrects me on anything. Seems like I'm doing pretty well here. But I knew this would happen. I knew things would go a little too well, so I actually have an image to show you of what it looks like. Well, there we go. I'm being too quiet. it's correcting me now. So you can see what some of those suggestions can look like. And if this makes you nervous to see something popping up in the corner, again, you can turn off the live interactions with you. So I'm going to escape out of this and show you what the report looks like when you finish. So, and I have a more complete report. I actually made a very silly presentation with tons of mistakes so we could see what sorts of things could happen. So this looks a little too perfect, but see how it's checking for pitch? This is giving me kind of an overall view of everything I said. I don't think I talked long enough to get a good pace, so I'll show you what that looks like. I have a completed report. Are you using fillers? Are you saying and Are you being too repetitive, etc.? So let me show you what a more complete report looks like, since that one went a little too well. So here are just a few examples of some things that can happen. You saw too quiet. Don't say too much. If you say it will tell you so. Try talking a little faster or a little slower. So you get the idea there. And then this is the rehearsal report. When it was a little more complete, it's got my pacing in here completed. This little bar is completed. There's actually a newer version since I took this screenshot that shows you a chart with your pitch, how much your pitch varies as you're talking. So maybe this helps you as you're practicing get an idea of how fast or how slow or how many ums you say. So kind of a cool little AI feature there in your slideshow tab. And then the last AI feature in PowerPoint I wanted to show you is actually also on your slideshow tab. On the right side, I'm looking at captions and subtitles. I think this is only in 365, and I don't remember if the default is that it is on or off, so you may have to tick this box here to turn it on. There are some additional subtitle settings underneath. So where would you like those subtitles to go? What spoken language? What language are you speaking? And then what's the subtitle language? So you're seeing that correctly. It will translate. You can have a spoken language of English and translate it into Spanish if you want. But just remember, this is AI. It's not perfect. It's not going to be as good as a real live human translator. So let me just show you what that looks like. I've got it turned on. I'm going to start my presentation. Now you can't see this at the bottom of my screen, but because it's right below what's recording, but it's saying it's listening. So you can see that it's turned on because it's listening. You can see at the bottom of my screen the captions appearing as I'm talking. Sometimes it will self-correct itself as we go. And again, not 100% perfect. So captions and subtitles. By the way, this is the same feature that you've seen in Teams when you have a Teams meeting and you turn on captions. It's the same exact software at work there. Okay, moving on. I'll get to Excel here a little later. I want to show you Word, one thing in Word actually. And this is a feature that is involving AI that's taking the place, well, not exactly taking the place, but it's sort of swallowed up, if you will, spelling and grammar check in Word. So you still have your spelling and grammar check on your review tab where you're used to finding it here, spelling and grammar. But it's also within this new feature called the editor. So you can find this on your home tab, all the way on the right side, editor. And you might have seen it just a second ago when I was on the review tab. Next to your spelling and grammar, also have editor. So I have a couple of speeches here. One is by Winston Churchill and one is by Lou Gehrig. This was just so that we could have a couple of, or a good block of text to work with. And I'm going to select my editor. And again, you're see how there's spelling and grammar? It's kind of tallying things up here. So this is not new. You've seen spelling forever, right? So you've got spelling here, you've got your suggestions that you can accept or ignore. This is all the same, maybe laid out a little differently than it used to be, but same story here really, right? You can kind of look through your spelling stuff here. Grammar, same story. And a lot of people aren't a big fan of the grammar check because a lot of times it's correcting things that you put there intentionally. So you can take it or leave it. You can either accept their suggestions or just ignore them. So that stuff's not new. What's new are these refinements. So before you even look at refinements, your decision is, what type of writing is this? Is it formal? Is it professional? Is it casual? So I'm just going to keep formal selected here, and just take a look at one of these. So, and keep in mind it's correcting Winston Churchill, which, So I'm going to click on clarity here and see what it's saying Winston should have said instead. So it's selected here. There remains, of course, the danger of bombing attacks, which will certainly be made. So they're saying, well, saying who or what the action, what did the action would be clear. Obviously, maybe Winston would say, well, I made this choice on purpose. I wanted this to be, this is what I wanted to say. So again, a huge grain of salt with this. You could always ignore any of these, but you might take a look through these and see if some of them speak to you. 21 of these for him. Similar story with conciseness, formality. So conciseness, at the moment, doesn't like that terminology, at the moment. Wants him to pick more concise language. So it's saying to put now instead. It's up to you if you want to take the suggestion, but sometimes there's some good stuff there. This is sort of a work in progress here. What is also new, I'm just going to keep scrolling down. You might have to scroll a little bit here, depending on your screen size. Similarity. Check for similarity to online sources. So let's say that I sent this to you and said, I just wrote this beautiful speech called Their Finest Hour. And you think, well, gosh, that sounds really familiar. You could check for similarity to online sources and see what's going on. I swear I've heard this before somewhere. So it'll kind of go out there and look, and it's saying, hey, 41% of your text is similar to online sources. And see how it's basically done a search here, and it's highlighted. I don't know if you can see that. It's sort of highlighted in blue text, some different sections. If you click on these, it's going to say, hey, I saw this on this winstonchurchill.org site. So anyway, it's found this online somewhere, so maybe I can't pass it off as my own. Another new feature, and this is all the way at the bottom, or almost at the bottom, is document stats. So if you're a fan of Grammarly, this might be something that interests you. Actually, this whole editor feature might interest you. But document stats, it always gives you this warning that it's going to take a while, but it rarely does. So if you're finished writing your paper, this might be something you would look at and see how many words, characters, paragraphs, sentences. So far, not too terribly new here. Average words per sentence, that can be interesting. Average sentences per paragraph. The readability, so these might interest you. The grade level, that 11.6. Passive sentences, some people are really not a fan of those, so you may be looking at that saying, wow, almost a quarter of this is passive sentences. So just something else that might be an interesting check for you at the end. And again, it's AI. It's not perfect. Obviously, Winston Churchill is going to be a better writer than an AI bot would be, but you never know. Sometimes you see some stuff in here that might help you out. To round this out, I would like to talk a little bit about a couple of features in Excel, and there's a lot that I could say about Excel, so I'm just going to crystallize this down to a few, just maybe 3 things here. So the first thing I want to show you, another new feature, another AI feature, and it's almost like the Excel version of the designer in PowerPoint. In that, if you're looking at your data, and you say, I have all this data, I don't know what story I want to tell with this data, I just know I've got, for instance, this this list of monetary expenses. So this feature is called Analyze Data. And basically, it's going to take your data and make some suggestions for different features and also find trends within that data. So I've kind of clicked into my data here. Home tab, here's the trend. Home tab all the way on the right side. See how they're all kind of over there. Word, PowerPoint, all those cool features are on the right side of the Home tab. So analyze data. And so this is going to take this sort of checkbook style entry in here and make some suggestions here on the right side. So I've got a suggestion of a pivot table, pivot chart, another pivot chart, and this one's picked up on a trend. it's saying, hey, maybe did you notice that honorariums accounts for the majority of debit? So it'll find little trends like this. So we learn how to make pivot tables, pivot charts from scratch in the full Excel pivot tables and charts session. But if you've never seen one before, this might be your first introduction to it. You say, wow, I didn't know what a pivot chart was, never heard of this. If I click on Insert Pivot Chart, it's just created that whole thing for me. I didn't really have to know how to create this. And bonus, it found a trend for me. So that's the Analyze Data feature on the Home tab. Now, I will tell you, I have an example in here of a time that it's maybe it'll pick up on data that it thinks is relevant, and sometimes it's not. So these are some fictional course grades. If you run Analyze Data on some things, notice how this picks up on, for instance, the ID column. It thinks the ID is some sort of relevant data. So sometimes you'll see it picking up on data that you don't care about. So you have a little bit of control here. Just to the right of Discover Insights, there's a little gear that you can kind of tweak this and say, you know, ID doesn't really matter. That's not really a true data type, right? Maybe all I care about is class, age, and the grade percent. Just totally narrow it down here. See if I get a different set of suggestions. So frequency of grade. Age versus grade, that could be interesting. So you get the idea. This is all fictional data. I just want to reiterate that. I just made all this up. So one more feature, well actually 1.5 more features that I want to show you. One is these are data types in Excel. So there is a lot that could be said about these, but I'm just going to talk about location as a data type. So if I have any type of field that Excel can recognize as a location, now you could have typed out the city or a state or a country. I put zip code, which if you can swing it, zip codes are very reliable because they're numbers. There's no alternate spellings, you know, or rogue spaces that can get thrown in there and confuse things. So what I'm going to do is select all of these cells, and I'm going to tell Excel to identify this as a data type of geography. So I'm going to go to my data tab, and kind of towards the center here I've got data types. There's a few different types in here. Any stock experts, that could be particularly interesting, I think. Here's geography. You might have to hit the little down arrow if you're on a smaller screen. So I've got my data selected, selecting geography. And Excel is identifying these, and you can tell that it's done identifying them because there's these little map icons that appear to the left of the zip code. In the upper right is a little tiny square with a plus sign, and this is going to be data that I can extract from what I've just identified as geography. So identified it as geography, I can pull from this city, state, county, description, or name. This is going to throw all this data in the column to the right of the selected column. So I had city, state, and county as a plan here. I can click on city, pull that out, state, and county. Super fast. And you'll even notice that these are also geography data types. So I could take any of these, and so I've got county here, pull even more information from the county. So from these counties, what is their description? What's their name, their population, you know, let's do largest city population, you know, whatever you'd like. So keep an eye out for these. These are really cool. And sometimes if you can't get your map charts to behave, using data types to get Excel to realize the location that you're actually intending can kind of help you out there. Speaking of map charts, I did want to just throw in how to create a simple map chart. So if you have a location, now notice I've got states, and this is a fictional data again. This is the number of Star Trek fans in a given state. I just made this up. Notice these aren't a geography data type. I don't have the map next to them, but if for some reason my map just wasn't behaving, maybe there's 2 Alabamas and it can't figure out, or I misspelled Arkansas, or, you know, who knows. Sometimes using that geography data type will kind of help you out with map charts. So map charts we do in full detail in the full Excel pivot tables and charts session, but long story short, it's on your Insert tab. Under Charts, here's your map option. It looks kind of like a globe. And the first time you select this, you're asked some sort of prompt to give Excel permission to use Bing Maps. And I forget what the terminology actually is with that, but that's how simple it is. It can identify, okay, these are all just in the US. Here's a US map. It's basically a heat map. And there's not a whole lot more you can do with this. You know, you can use some different chart styles if you're a fan of chart styles. You can add labels. And again, full session, we'll go into more detail about this, but just as an overview, you can see that heat map, see all those Star Trek fans in Kansas. That was the plan. But anyway, you get the idea there. That is some cool digital transformation tips for you in Office 365. If you're interested in full sessions, check out my training. I have sessions on all of the applications I just showed you and more. They're all offered virtually, and would love to see you there. So thanks for joining me.